On this edition of ITG, once more into the breach, the final Big 12 regular season game. And yes, the Mountaineers still have plenty to play for. We'll get into all of that and more on this edition of In the Gun.
You are now watching Believe.
ITG.
With Wes, Owen, and Jed.
I've got the best teammates in the business here, all right?
No way!
They both played the game. They both know the game. Owen is the runaway beer truck known for having some fun.
Owen Schmidt, you have a podcast, In the Gun.
Owen Schmidt, like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
Jed is the signal caller who is the X's and O's and the brainiac.
First of all, Jed's research is pretty impressive.
So we've combined those two skill sets.
Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
You are In the Gun.
Once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 216 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I am Wes Euler with the best teammates in the business. As always, we got the signal caller, Jed Drenning. We will be joined momentarily by the big beer truck, Big O himself. An interesting tailgate recipe that we're going to get from Owen before we get out of here on this Thanksgiving week. Our buddy Big Daddy is going to join us on this episode as well. So plenty to get to. And you already know everything we do here on ITG brought to you in part by our friends at Bet Online. The game starts here, and it is the final week of the college football regular season. Well, before we let Army and Navy do their thing, right? The final week of the college football season for everybody else that's not the most famous historic rivalry in the history of the sport. It is the final week of Big 12 play. And yes, the Mountaineers, much like the Bee Gees, ABBA, Staying Alive, that's the Bee Gees, right, Jed?
Bee Gees.
It's the Bee Gees. Okay, I thought so. See, I second guessed myself there. But WVU can still clinch a Big 12 title berth. It's a little complicated, as you would think. Well, maybe not as much. They need to win. That's much as obvious. The Mountaineers need to go to Lubbock Saturday. Well, it'll be a morning kickoff at 11 a.m., but take care of business there Saturday afternoon in Lubbock. They need Baylor to lose, and the Baylor Bears play at home against Kansas. They need BYU to lose. BYU hosts Houston. They need Colorado to lose. Colorado hosts Oklahoma State. And we need Arizona State to lose. They are on the road in the Battle of Arizona there for the first time in the Big 12 edition. Arizona State taking on their rival, the Arizona Wildcats, on the road. So, Jed, Mountaineers you need 5 things to happen. Mountaineers need to win. You need 4 other teams to lose. Those 4 teams, okay, Baylor's only a 1.5-point favorite at home against Kansas. Kansas is playing really well. That one I think we could all see happen, certainly. Colorado's 17-point favorites at home against Oklahoma State. ASU 8.5-point favorites on the road in Arizona. And then BYU 12.5-point favorites against Houston. Jed, I ain't saying it's likely, but you're saying there's a chance.
West Virginia is a 3.5-point underdog in Lubbock. So
good.
You need
just the way we like
5 upsets. Okay, let's lend this some context, first of all. The reason we're even discussing this is because we thought certainly by now you would need 30 things and 18 cosmic forces to get in. But that's not the case. It's 5 things, as Wes just said. And to me, that sounds pretty crazy, but that's true. It's 5 upsets. Now, you might be wondering, now, wait a minute. Iowa State's sitting there at 9-2, going for their first ever, trying to achieve their first ever 10-win season in program history. Why doesn't Iowa State need to lose? Well, because, and Wes pointed this out right before we came on the air, that is who, if all these other things happen, you would face in Dallas is Iowa State. So if these 5 things happened, yes, it would be a West Virginia at 7-5 against Iowa State at, well, most likely 10-2 or even 9-3, apparently. Either way, it would be them. If these other things happen, it sounds like Iowa State gets in. Either way, I don't know. I didn't look at Iowa State's, but that's the answer to the Iowa State piece. But once again, you might be wondering, now, wait a minute, this is crazy. What are the odds of 5, favored teams losing to 5 underdog? Look, it's not that we disagree. The whole point is the fact that it's only 5 things, that in itself is kind of remarkable, and that's why we're bringing it up. It's I think it's worth discussing insofar as I can't believe it's not a whole lot more things at this point. And once again, we've talked about the parity of the Big 12 all year. In the last episode, Wes, you and I mentioned Kansas became the first team in the history of college football with a losing record
Yep.
to beat three straight ranked teams. Nothing sacred holds in this league. It really doesn't. I mean, there are no givens, there are no guarantees. Everything is absolutely wide open and bedlam. And of course, there's also no guarantee that the conference West Virginia finds itself in under this current structure. If it falls a certain way, yes, there is that doomsday scenario where maybe the Big 12 doesn't get in the playoffs. Now that would take a calamity, but we've seen calamities before. There's no,
Sure.
in other words, don't think that just because we're a P4 conference, we have an auto bid. We don't. The structure of the 12-team playoff is the 5 highest ranked conference champions get in, the 4 highest ranked conference champions get in 1 through 4 with a bye. That doesn't mean it's a P4. I mean, they're already talking about putting Boise, if they win their league, at number 4 over the Big 12 champ, who might get in at 12. There's already a ton of talk about that. So if you end up with a 4-loss Big 12 team, who knows what might happen here, or worse, uh, depending on how you look at it. That Big 12 team, there's no guarantee it does get in. You might have another G5 slip, and you talk about controversy. Let the controversy begin when
Yeah.
that happens. Because
Seriously.
here's the way this is structured with 12 teams: 5 guarantees for the 5 highest ranked conference champs. And then you have 7 at large bids, which are by and large going to be gobbled up by the Big Ten and the SEC. But that's kind of what the Big 12 is playing for. I really don't see a scenario at this juncture after what happened this past weekend, Colorado losing, et cetera, et cetera. Wes, I don't see a scenario, and we'll ask Phil about this later in the week, Phil Steele, when he comes on, that the Big 12 at this juncture can get realistically hope to get 2 in. I don't know how that would happen. I really
Yeah.
don't know how that would happen. But anyway, that's what you're looking at. And there's your reason for why we even brought it up to discuss it, because it's 5 things. So obviously it's worth pointing out.
Yeah, I think if Colorado's out of the equation because they're a 3-loss team now, you could maybe convince me that listen, because a lot of this, and this is in regards to getting a second Big 12 team in potentially that you mentioned
That's
there.
right. If you
And
win the
I think
conference with 3 losses, Colorado still get in.
I
Right?
think so. I think so.
Yeah, but if you lose
It'd
and
be
go to
very
4, forget
hard.
it.
Yeah, I think they would have a hard time keeping a P4 champion out, even with 3 losses, as they should. So I think you're safe there. But anything after that, you're right. It gets very
I think
dicey
they'd
and
want to. They'd
even
want to keep you
unlikely.
out, but I don't think they can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. They'd want to put some 4-loss SEC team in instead or something like
Yes.
that. But
Yes.
I think if if BYU would have maybe, instead of losing back-to-back games here, if BYU would have maybe lost one of those games at the beginning of the year and then one at the very end of the year, I don't know, but yeah, I think it's going to be a one bid league for the Big 12 in this first iteration of the 12-team playoff. But hey, Jed, you know what? If we could do some damage and make it a 0 bid league, I'll take it. I mean, everybody could hate us. Everybody could be mad at us. Brett Yormark could drop bombs over Morgantown. Fine, whatever. If we want to move to 7-5 and then 8-5 as a Big 12 champion, I will certainly take it. And nana boo boo to the potential ripples that would cause for the conference.
I mean, I'm trying to do the math here. How many teams? Okay, because this I've seen multiple tweets sorting this out. How many teams are still mathematically, again, West Virginia's in, so how many others are there? Okay, this has a scenario for Texas Tech. This has a scenario
Big
for
12.
Baylor.
The
This
Big
has a
12 conference
scenario
just
for,
tweeted this out too.
okay, how many are still alive? West
Yes.
Virginia. This has a scenario for Arizona State. This has a scenario for BYU. Those are couple of the more obvious ones. It has a scenario, obviously, for Iowa State. It has a scenario for Kansas State. Again, there's Texas Tech. I can't get a number out of this because it's
Hold on,
doubling back with some of these.
Wait, hold
5 or
on.
6.
I think it's 6. 6 was my memory bank here, but I got it right here. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teams can technically still
Yeah.
8 teams.
Half the league.
Half the league.
Oh.
BYU, Arizona State, Iowa State, Colorado, Kansas. I mean, I think those 5 are not surprising, or Kansas State, pardon me, are not surprising to anybody at this point. BYU, Arizona State, Iowa State, Colorado, Kansas State. But then Baylor, Texas Tech, and WVU could still get into the Big 12 championship game.
So TCU's out of the mix.
TCU's out of the mix, yes.
And they're 7-4.
It's funny. It's funny. It is. Yeah, I know. I mean, it is hilarious how that all works
50% of our league, at least. Well, that's the 50% you want to be in going into the final weekend, right? So
exactly right.
Wow. And meanwhile, West Virginia trying to win 12 games over the course of 2 seasons. It will be the second time in the Big 12 we've done that. The last time we did it was 7 wins one season, 5 the next. This would be, if we pull it off in Lubbock and win as underdogs, it would be 6 last year, 6 this year. The other thing we're trying to do, and we discussed this with our last road win at Cincinnati, we are trying to win our 5th straight conference road game spanning over 2 years. We have 3 straight this year. Wes, the last time that happened is, well, Owen played in some of those games, 2007 into 2008. The last time West Virginia won 5 straight conference road games. And this will be critical. We're trying to this would be our 4th straight conference road game winning the turnover margin. We're trying to do that. I know against Cincinnati, that was our 3rd straight conference road game winning the turnover margin. It was the first time since 2008. I haven't checked to see when the last time we did it 4 straight times, but that's what we're trying to do. And obviously in Lubbock, that would help or go a long way toward helping pull an upset against these guys, because these guys can score, and if you could steal a couple possessions with takeaways, there you go. But that's what some of the things we'll get into. But fascinating. 8 of 16 teams are still mathematically viable. That in and of itself, if you can get Lloyd Christmas involved with 8 of 16 teams,
so you're telling me there's a chance.
You're telling me there's still a chance. Yes, that is crazy.
Mountaineers need to win and then get 4 other results. They need Baylor, Arizona State, K-State, and Colorado to all lose. If that all transpires, the 5 things that need to happen, we're all driving to Dallas, and we're taking vehicles from Toothman Ford to get there. A big shout out to everybody at Team Toothman and our buddy JR. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. JR, we're gonna need a fleet if we get 5 for 5 here and get this thing done.
Wes, I'll promise you, JR will be with us. He'll be driving with us. I'll promise you will be.
That's exactly right. I'm hoping about Saturday at 3:30, I'm on my phone looking for flights and potential ways to get to Dallas, but we'll see. We'll see. Let's let's control what we can control and get the W, and then sit back and watch some of the rest of this unfold throughout the day. What will it take for the Mountaineers to get the W in Lubbock, Texas? Of course, we know a tough place to play and a Texas Tech team that is still mathematically alive for a Big 12 championship game berth as well. So they're saying all the same things we're saying right now. What are some of the key matchups, some of the key personnel? We'll break that all down when we return. You are in the gun. For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. Back in the gun here as we roll along to get you ready for, well, the regular season finale. We do know the Mountaineers will play a 13th game as they secured bowl eligibility for the 20th time in 23 seasons. So, final regular season game here for the Mountaineers as they roll down to Lubbock. We laid out some of those scenarios, what WVU needs. Both of these teams still alive for a Big 12 championship berth. So I think certainly more on the line than you would expect from a 6-5 WVU team and a 7-4 Texas Tech team. They still have plenty to play for here in the final week of the regular season. So Jed, let's get into this. Big O, welcome to the party, pal. Good to have you here. Jed, when you look at this Texas Tech offense, where you want to begin here?
Explosive as you might expect out of a Texas Tech offense. But if you look at the overview of this program, Wes, what Joey McGuire's done in a handful of years there, first of all, there were some expectations entering this season after they finished strong last year after a disappointing start to the season. There were expectations to start 2023, and those didn't materialize until down the stretch. But coming into this year, Texas Tech found itself ranked for the first time in 15 years. And one of the things that's unfolded as Oklahoma and Texas left the Big 12 to go to the SEC, they were the more dominant recruiting presence in this conference for so many years. They were always 1 and 2. Well, Texas Tech's kind of assumed that mantle. They slipped into number one, finished number one overall with the class they signed, and it was back-to-back top 25 classes that they've signed with Joey McGuire. And they've got things amped up from on the money side with the NIL humming at a high level. Taj Brooks, a lot of people thought they were going to lose their star running back. They didn't. They stepped up on the NIL front and put a package together for him. But they have all the pieces returning. And here we are with Baron Morton, guys, at quarterback. This would mark the first time, because he's played every game, since Patrick Mahomes in 2016, that Texas Tech saw one quarterback start every game, because they've been so banged up multiple times every year. And so far this year, that hasn't been the case. Okay, so they've had some continuity behind center. That's made a big difference. Overall in the league, they've been very productive. Number 2 in total offense. They're churning out about 450 yards. They lead the conference in scoring offense, scoring 37 a game. Scary thing is, at home, they're even more dangerous, scoring 42 a game, which is also best in the Big 12. They throw the football for nearly 300 yards a game. They're running the football for 150 plus a game. From a third down offense standpoint, they're pretty scary because it's difficult to get them off the field. They're among the best in the league. A matter of fact, number 2 in the conference from an efficiency standpoint there. So they've had 5 different players score 5 touchdowns. Again, these are the types of things it seems like for a couple decades you've been saying about Texas Tech offenses. And it's always a dangerous proposition to be heading into West Texas, heading into the Plains, and step into Jones AT&T Stadium and try and corral this offense. And that's exactly what we're tasked with. But the trigger man, we talked about it already. Baron Morton. Baron Morton is a guy that started against us a couple years ago and really shredded us when we stepped into that 48-10 buzzsaw our last trip down there. And what I remember about that, guys, is it was all quick game. I mean, I think he was 11 to 14 on screens, most of them quick perimeter screens. Now, you saw what he was unable to do against us in Morgantown last year, because if you remember, their starter got hurt. Baron Morton was the backup, and he had to step in as a backup. Huge difference stepping in as a backup after you've taken second team reps, which is only about a quarter of the reps all week. Because last week in that loss to West Virginia in Morgantown, he really struggled. 13 to 37, 158 yards. Again, those second team reps were reflected. He didn't look polished. He didn't look crisp. Now compare that to 2022 when we headed down into Lubbock to face him. Here was the big difference. He was making a start that week, coming off his first start, and then spending a bye week, 2 weeks to get ready for West Virginia. And boy, could you tell, he lit us up. 324 yards, a couple touchdowns. Again, just made so much hay with those quick perimeter screens, and we couldn't get ahead of it. But as productive as you might expect this year, he's kept the football out of harm's way. Last year, maybe he threw a few more picks than you'd expect, took some chances. This year, he's developed and grown in that area. He's hitting about 63% of his passes, but he's only been picked off 7 times compared to 25 touchdowns. So now what's funny, we talk about this QBR rating, this global quarterback rating that ESPN likes to use. And sometimes it can smoke some things out that you might not otherwise see unless you really scrutinize the tape. His QBR is 54.9. which is only 12th in the Big 12. None of his numbers would seem to reflect something that would warrant a 12th place rank. But when you look at it globally and all things considered from a big picture football standpoint, there are some things that he hasn't been quite as polished at. Now, we always want to talk about if a guy's a running threat or not. He has negative rushing yards, but he has some games, guys, where they game planned him to run the football a little bit. Cincinnati comes to mind. He ran for 40 plus yards, made a difference there. He's been sacked 23 times, which is the third most in the Big 12. You can get after him. One of the things they'll do, they'll run a lot of empty. So they'll go five wides, but when they go five wides, he gets the football out very quickly. Sometimes you get home on him, but he gets the football out pretty quickly. They'll even move his launch point a little bit to help him get it out quickly. So those are the things that you have to contend with him. Now, this will give you some indication as to what you're dealing with their quick game. You'll see a lot of jet outs, like quick outs. You'll see him work the perimeter. He'll work the boundary. He'll work the screen game. And some of the receivers that we're going to talk about here in a minute, we'll talk about some of those screen numbers, but he has completed more screens than any quarterback, not just in the Big 12, but he's tied for the lead in all of Power Four because they work that quick game. When you look at when he gets the football out under 2.5 seconds versus when he's forced to hold it for more than 2.5 seconds, guys, under 2.5 seconds, he completes over 70% of his passes, like in the 73, 74% range. But when you force him to hold on to it, that number plummets under 50%. He's like around 48. So if you can hold up in coverage just enough to take that quick game element away or make it take his first read away, that's when you can force him into some bad things. But Owen, the problem is he has some weapons on the perimeter. We're going to talk about that. But Taj Brooks, I've been reluctant all year as we faced all these incredible feature backs to call any of these guys the best in the Big 12. I didn't say it about Corey Connor. I didn't say it about RJ Harvey, and both of them are incredible players.
Ollie
That's
Gordon.
because I do what yeah, exactly. Ollie Gordon. That's because I do believe Taj Brooks is the best running back in the Big 12. So now I'm going to say it. But what say you, your initial thoughts about Taj Brooks, Owen?
Well, I mean, Taj Brooks, an absolute horse, 5'10", 230, Tech's all-time leading rusher. So it was a great thing for them to get that NIL collab together to make sure that he stayed at Tech this year. 131, second in the Big 12, 5-yard average, 14 TDs. He's had 10 games of 109 plus, 54 missed tackles forced, which is ridiculous. So obviously, not a one-man tackle guy. 22 yards of 15 plus. That's the third most in the Big 12. Second most inside zone run carries, but they're a little bit more outside this year, and they also run some gap plays and sprinkle them in the pass game. 26 catches, 164 yards, 1 TD. Accounts. This is the craziest one that you put up there, Jed. 79% of Tech's non-QB runs. 79% is an absolute workhorse, dude. Absolute workhorse. And like you said, he's their all-time leading rusher.
That's significant.
The film doesn't lie. He's an absolute horse. It's very significant. And I'll come back to what I said in the beginning. There's a reason that NIL Collective made sure that he stayed home for a good reason. But an absolute force for the team. And the biggest thing, besides the 79% of the non-QB runs, is the 54 missed tackles forced. That is an incredible number. And anytime, I'll talk about this, anytime you can make the first man miss, in my opinion, that's what a great running back does. They make the first guy miss. Right? 2-3 might get you from behind, but the first guy, if you can make the first guy miss, you're a special cat.
Yeah, he has a couple starts against West Virginia. He's been incredibly productive in both those starts. Last year, Morgantown ran for 149 yards. A couple years ago in Lubbock, went over 100 yards with 2 touchdowns. And when you talked about the 79% of all their non-quarterback runs, for instance, when you look at their backup, Cameron Dickey, he's only run the football 26 times. What Tech reminds you of? It's kind of like last year's Oklahoma State offense. Last year, Oklahoma State was a very pass-heavy offense. And people had this misconception that they were run first because of what Ollie Gordon was doing. Well, most people didn't realize, no. Tech throws it way more than they run it. But when they do run it,
Yeah.
it's just about only Ollie Gordon. And that's the case with Texas Tech. They throw the football 56% of the time. But that 44% of the time they're running it, guess who's getting it? Number 28. And he's
Yeah.
special. He's everything that Owen just talked about. Some of the things that jump out on tape to me, Owen, like for instance, when they're running inside zone, you have to maintain incredible gap integrity across the entire front because sometimes what you'll see happen, you'll see somebody with a run fit on the edge on the perimeter that will get collapsed. Like maybe they run a bunch formation and send a slot to crash down a backer. And if that backer doesn't maintain gap integrity with that outside, that exterior run fit, Taj Brooks so quickly sees it, even though it's inside zone, bounces that thing on the dime, boom, he breaks contain and off he goes. So you have to maintain gap integrity in every gap across your entire front, or this guy will make you pay for it. I mean, the game that to me says what Taj Brooks really is when I watched the second half of their win at Jack Trice Stadium in Ames against a very good Iowa State team and Iowa State defense this year. There were so many times in the second half of that game that they just leaned on Taj Brooks to put them in manageable situations to make life easier for the rest of the offense. They played a little bit of keep away. They did everything they had to do. And every time they needed a play in a critical sequence, in a critical situation against Iowa State, Taj Brooks made that play. This kid is special. With a guy like that, a lot of other things are possible. And it's scary how he sets the table with some of the weapons that we're going to talk about that they have on the perimeter. Oh, and you want to hit on Josh Kelly, transferred from Washington State. Speaking of the playmakers, he's the first one you want to talk about from a pitch and catch standpoint.
Yeah, smart guy. 56% of his yardage has come after the catch, which that's another huge stat.
Yeah.
When you're looking at a wide receiver with talent like that. Decent sized frame, honestly, 6'1", 195. 16 moved the stick. That's a great little stat there, Jed. And six more third down catches than any other player in the country, right?
Yeah, so
crazy.
If it's third down, start paying attention to number 3 for Texas Tech. 29 third down catches, 16 have achieved first downs, and his 29 third down grabs, just like Owen said, that's half a dozen more third down catches than any other player in college football. So they love to target him in third down situations.
Yeah, and also, Jed, physical guy, 8 contested catches on 50-50 balls. So, he's gonna be that guy you go up and to get it and fight for it. So definitely be looking out.
Yeah, the thing that concerns me perhaps most, again, he plays more out of the slot than anywhere else. 28 of his catches are on screens. 25% of those screen grabs are for a first down. He averages 5.6 yards on each screen catch. Now, you might think that that's not daunting. That's not going to slam the door open. I'll tell you what, 5.6 yards after 5.6 yards after 5.6 yards, anytime Texas Tech needs it, that is precisely what keeps this offense humming. It doesn't matter if it's first and 10 leading to a second and 4. It doesn't matter if it's a third and 5 leading to a first and 10. He kills you. Baron Morton kills you with that quick game to Josh Kelly in that screen game. He'll sprinkle some screens to some of their other receivers, but not nearly as heavy a diet of them as you see to Josh Kelly. And Owen, you talked about that physicality. He's physical. He's 6'1". He's pushing 2 bills. He can run through arm tackles. And with all those perimeter screens, look, I've thrown them. You've blocked them. That's what it takes. It's all about angles out there. And what you're trying to do is present no more than a half a body to a defender. And when you got his physicality, you're going to plow right through that thing and pick a couple extra yards up. You talked about the 50-50 balls, those contested catches. They trust him to do that. He's the kind of guy that's going to jump in the air, leap up, and just snatch that thing with very strong hands. And he just continues to make play after play after play. That's why he's been targeted well over 100 times. But they brought him in for a very specific reason. See, here's what happened to their wideout room, guys. They lost a ton of transfers in the portal. And they basically tried to retool their receiver room or their pass catcher room in general, including the tight end Conyers. through the portal, and they feel that it was an upgrade. You have Josh Kelly, who came in as a transfer, and then you have Caleb Douglas, who's their other top wideout. He was a starter early last year for the Florida Gators until he suffered an injury. And he's more of a large framed guy, 6'4, 200 plus pounds. He's a Texas kid that came back home. But again, he started his career at the University of Florida in the SEC, and they feed him too. 80 plus targets, over 50 catches. He's one of those guys with 5 touchdowns. He's averaging 14 yards a grab. He has 7 contested catches, so he too will use his frame. Now, here's what's frightening about that guy. When you think 6'4, 205 pounds, you think red zone, right? Bingo. All 5 of his touchdowns have come in the red zone. So that's another weapon. And Owen, if you're looking at it right now, you got a third guy that played against us last year, Coy Aiken, another guy with some size too.
Yeah, 6'2", 210, another big build guy. Physical for sure. What is that? Stephenville, Texas.
Stephenville,
Texas guy. This year, yeah, right. 39 catches, 14.3 yard average, 6 TD. Pretty stout. Coming off 7 catches versus Oklahoma State, so obviously been kind of humming. What is that? 68
targets. Yeah.
Targets.
Yep. So again,
68
they run
targets
the football
this year so far with, and that's that's their third guy though. That's their third guy.
Yeah.
So
they run the football. They
you know what I mean? Definitely spread the wealth.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then you finally round things out with yet another transfer in tight end. Jalen Conyers is a kid who transferred in from Arizona State. He was a big get in the portal during this off season. 6'4", 265, very athletic. Another Texas kid that came home, 25 catches, averaging over 10 yards a grab. He too has 5 touchdowns. And what's scary about him? Another guy that can be weaponized in the red zone. Some of the things that you'll see them do on tape, they'll go trips away and have a tight formation with him aligned, attached to the tackle, just so they can get single coverage with him to run various routes or options or corners and target him once they get inside the red zone. And it's been very effective. But that's kind of what's played out with their skill guys. And then when you look at their offensive line room,
hey, Jed, real
this
quick.
Entire room. Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick. Something stands out to me here.
Go ahead.
Caleb Douglas, wide receiver. Or sorry, let's start with wide receiver 1, Josh Kelly, 5 touchdowns on the year. Wide receiver 2, Caleb Douglas, 5 touchdowns on the year. Wide receiver 3, Cody Eakin, 6 touchdowns on the year. Tight end number 1, 5 touchdowns on the year. If you throw the running back Taj Brooks into that equation as well too, they have 5 different players with 5 or more touchdowns. I mean, that's an offense that I just wanted to point that out. That's a handful of playmakers that can hurt you.
When you look last year, they had Jaron Bradley, they had Miles Price, they had other weapons, but again, those guys all took off in the portal. So to rebuild it in the fashion that they have, and they look a lot different this year too, because one of the things that Baron Morton was dealing with down the stretch, or significant stretches of last year, he had a nagging shoulder injury, and that impacted their vertical game. Now that he's 100% with that shoulder injury, they look a little different with what they're trying to accomplish with those weapons on the perimeter. But once again, they have the weapons on the perimeter. They have an offensive line that they've managed to put together, because that was another room that had to be reconstructed. 4 starters were lost from 2023. So what they've done is, once again, they dipped into the portal. 3 of those starters transferred out to Power 5 programs. They have a 5th starter moved from right tackle to center. The new offensive line is packed with transfers. You have a transfer from Toledo, a transfer from Memphis, a transfer from Middle Tennessee. You have a JUCO kid. So they've managed to make this work, and they even have a new offensive line coach. And when you look at his history, he's a guy that has made some things hum and made some things tick with other air raid offenses, whether it was at USC or Washington State. So they do consider, the staff in general considers this offensive line, this unit, more athletic than last year's unit. So it puts you in position to do a lot of different things. So that's kind of the offense at large. But I'll close with a couple more comments about what you see out of Baron Morton. He's an incredibly fast starter. This is something we talked about with the challenge we were going to deal with last week with Dylan Risk from UCF. Very similar with what you're dealing with Baron Morton. His first quarter numbers, guys, in the first quarter, he's completed 74% of his throws, 11 touchdowns, which is number 2 in the country. 11 first quarter touchdowns, no picks. He leads the Big 12 in big time throws off play action, and that's something that stands out on tape. When you see them taking shot plays, or when you see them pushing the football downfield, it often comes off that threat presented by Taj Brooks. Why wouldn't you, play into that? He presents such a challenge for those safeties.
Sure.
That's exactly what you want to do is impact those safeties with the threat of him. So they are a play action team, and his 10 big time throws off play action leads the conference. That's probably not surprising. Again, ton of screens. So you're going to have to counter and have an answer for the quick screens, the perimeter game. Now, you can go one of a couple ways here because this is another team you're going to be dealing with tempo. When I'm watching tape, I see a lot of guys misaligned. I see defenders trying to sprint on the field and get lined up. And that tells you when you're watching tape, because you're not watching in real time and it's clipped between the snaps, but that tells you that, hey, tempo is causing a problem for these defenses. So once again, you're not going to have a lot of time to get lined up. You're not going to have a lot of time to communicate. You're not going to have a lot of time to substitute. So those challenges are going to be presented. One of the things we've tried to do in recent weeks, how do you offset some of the perimeter quick screen game? Because DBs aren't necessarily built as physically as backers to shed those blocks and make those plays on those quick screens. There were times that we kind of put Reed Carrico in position to the wide side of the field, almost in a spear position to fight downhill, anticipating perimeter screen. But then you got to pick your spots, because if you do it enough that they see that, they're going to try and isolate a mismatch in the pass game. So pick your spots, but do expect a ton of screens. Again, we talked about his QBR ranking. We talked about the fact that he puts the football out quickly. He hasn't thrown a lot of picks, but he's gotten away with a couple as well. He has 15 for the season, 15 turnover-worthy plays. And something I would say, I was watching tape and I wondered, so I looked up the numbers. He does tend to get a little sloppy between the 40s. I think he almost seems to settle into some form of comfort zone and gets a little sloppier with the football than he otherwise might in that middle of the field area where the entire playbook becomes open. 4 of his 7 interceptions have happened or taken place between the 40s. And I think there's something to say about that. But once again, they're going to try and kill you with the quick game, kill you with the run game. And if you can hold up in coverage just enough to take away that initial read and make him squeeze the trigger instead of pull it and hold it for more than 2.5 seconds, once you get him past 2.5 seconds, remember that completion percentage plummets, takes a massive dip from 74% down to 48. And if you're doing that to him, that's probably the recipe for a lot of 2nd and 10s, getting them off schedule. That's kind of what you hope and what you want.
That is exactly what we are looking for Saturday afternoon in Lubbock. Another thank you to our friends at Fortis, our guy Rick Lewis, for being a presenting sponsor of In the Gun for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. You got to visit fortis.us.com. Okay, Jed, so I'm looking at these offensive numbers for Texas Tech. Number 2 total offense in the Big 12. Number 1 scoring offense in the Big 12, averaging 42 points per game at home. And I'm thinking, all right, how are these guys 7-4 when they're humming that way? Well, as we spin the block to the defense, you might understand why. It's kind of the opposite. Yeah. Total defense, 15 out of 16, almost dead last in the Big 12. Scoring defense, 16 out of 16, dead last in the Big 12. Jed, their pass defense, Mountaineer fans have listen, I'm not saying incorrectly, but Mountaineer fans have spent a lot of time discussing our secondary woes throughout this year. Their passing defense is dead last in the Big 12 and 133rd out of 134 Division I college football teams.
Yes.
So, Jed, I don't think I have to be Einstein to say that there is certainly an opportunity to make some hay against this defense.
There is. There certainly is. Every time that Mountaineer fans have been frustrated over the struggles of our back end and our pass defense, I've tried to point it out. They say, well, it can't get any worse. And I'm like, oh, not so fast. Apparently, you're not watching as much tape as I am on some of these other teams and looking at some of these other numbers, because we're at about 260 a game in terms of what we allow passing the football. You need to add 50 yards a game to that to get to where Texas Tech is. They've struggled mightily. Guys, you remember when we were frustrated against our FCS opponent when Albany managed to throw for 200 or 306 yards? You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, their FCS opponent threw for 506 yards. Okay. So if you think 306 bad, what does 506 look like? So this is a team that last year, just understand the culture. We all know what goes on at Texas Tech. Understand the culture of this program at large, spanning multiple head coaches all the way back to Mike Leach. It can be Tommy Tuberville. It can be Cliff Kingsbury. It doesn't really matter, all the way up to Joey McGuire. One thing is held true: high octane, wide open offense, and a strain on the defense. The offense that we just got done talking about, they do deploy tempo, enough tempo to run a ton of plays. I mean, when you look at their play count, guys, their play count, it's somewhere toward the top of power three. It's number 3 in the country in the FBS. They lead the Big 12, almost 79 snaps a game. That puts your defense, as we know, on the field for a ton of plays. Defensively, they've had to defend the second most snaps in the Big 12 because of that high octane, pedal to the floor tempo offense. Last year, Tech found a way to come together and hold opponents to 26 points a game. Now, that might not sound all that impressive, but it was actually the best scoring defense that Texas Tech fielded since 2009. Here are the issues. All 4 starting defensive linemen and 4 more defensive backs were all gone. Now, when you lose that kind of production and that kind of experience, those battle-tested veterans, in the pass rush, the key pieces of the pass rush were gone. You would expect to take a dip, and that's exactly what we've seen happen. What holds this defense together? You have a very productive pair of linebackers on the interior. They're a proven commodity, Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez, because it's kind of interesting. The scheme that they deploy, there's elements of the odd stack in it, but it's also considered a 2-4-5. It's used. Tim DeRuyter, their defensive coordinator, has a long history of trying to get speed on the field as much as possible to defend against the pass. All right. Now, there are pros to that and there are cons to that. Well, what ends up happening is this scheme is designed to try and funnel things back inside to playmaking inside linebackers. And when you look at his history, not just here at Texas Tech, but going all the way back to what they've done in the past, when he was at Cal, they had a linebacker in 2018, Evan Weaver. He had 158 tackles, number 2 in the country. He had a linebacker that was number 5 in the country. Same year, he had number 2 and number 5, 2 of the top 5 tacklers in the country, those inside backers in this scheme. The next year, Evan Weaver, he was number 1 in the country and the fourth most in FBS history with 191 tackles. So the pattern emerging is, if you play defense in this scheme, just like the Noah Sewell kid he had at Oregon, 114 tackles, number 2 in the Pac-12. A couple years ago, Merriweather, 112 tackles, number 3 in the Big 12. Well, this is right where he wants to be from a tackle production standpoint, funneling all those plays back into the box to your playmakers. We talked about Jacob Rodriguez. Watch for him on Saturday, number 10, 113 total tackles. It's right where Tim DeRuyter wants things to be in terms of who's getting the stops. Over 10 a game. He's number 1 in the Big 12, number 3 in all of Power 4. That's kind of what Tim DeRuyter wants to do. The issues they've had outside of those couple forces in the middle, they haven't tackled efficiently. They've missed tackles. Tackles have been broken. They haven't been sound in technique or fundamentals. They have the second worst coverage grade, according to PFF, in all of Power 4. They have the third worst tackle grade, according to PFF, in all of Power 4. And when you look at Sports Info Solutions, when you break down those metrics, tackles broken against this Tech defense, 39, second most in the entire Big 12. Tackles that were missed by this Texas Tech defense, 45, also the second most in the entire Big 12. Guys, 6.3% of all rush attempts against this Texas Tech defense go for a score. That's the worst in the Big 12. So they've struggled mightily from an efficiency standpoint and from a fundamental standpoint, and that has caught up to them a ton of times. A ton of times. Now, if you want to look at one area, Wes, because we always talk situational football on this podcast, nobody in today's climate is going to hold you to 285 every week and 13 or 14 points every week. Those days are over. There might be weeks that you do, but you can't rely on that week in, week out. So you got to win in situational football. You have to win in the red zone, hold them to threes instead of sixes. You have to win on third down. You have to force some takeaways. Well, they've managed to force some takeaways, but they've struggled in the red zone. They're number 11. West Virginia's dead last. Still, we're trying to improve there. But here is where they're not bad situationally. They're number 3 in the Big 12 on third down defense. So it might take an all hands on deck effort when you look at what West Virginia sometimes does by combining their efforts in third and fourth down to move the sticks. It might take some of that. So don't be surprised that this is another one of those games where you see West Virginia go for it 4 or 5 times. 2 weeks ago against Baylor, we were 2 for 5, and it cost us those failures. But this past week against UCF, Wes, you and I talked about it the other night. We were 4 for 4, and that really, really propelled that win.
Yep.
So this might be another one of those types of games against a defense that, yes, struggles in just about every respect, in just about every key category, but one. They've been pretty effective in getting you off the field or getting a lot of offenses off the field in third down. They'll show different coverages. They'll show different fronts. I mean, if I'm to break this down, again, we talked about that 2-4-5 front, Owen. They use that 38% of the time, which is among the top 20 usages in the entire country. But they also run stack 36% of the time. You'll see them in a basic 3-4 defense. Sometimes they move so many parts of this defense around. What you'll see is 2 big heavies on the interior. Now, in the past, they had some war daddies manning things up with those 2 big heavies, NFL guys. I'm not so sure about that right now, but you'll see 2 big heavies, and in that 2-4-5, those 2 big heavies have some edge guys on the outside of them, and the 2 interior backers gobbling up all those tackles, and then the 5 DBs behind them. So it puts you in position to roll to different coverages, give you all kind of different looks. So once again, we talk so many times when we face these odd configuration defenses, just like we did last week against UCF. What's going to be critical for Brandon Yates and that offensive line? Brandon Yates, by the way, poised to set a new record for career games played by a Mountaineer in their career. It's going to be critical to communicate crisply and ID what you're seeing, because what you're seeing is going to be a little bit different each time out. So that's the challenge, Owen. I mean, think back to when you were playing. And when you weren't playing, let's say, a basic 4-3 or a basic 3-4, some of those defenses that might junk the front up or move some second or third level players around and toy with you to mess with your read keys. You're always the quarterback's trying to identify the mic and help you out. But when that's a moving target, sometimes it becomes a little more difficult, and they will do some of that. They'll stem, show some snap movement. But think back to when you were doing that, Owen, and some of the challenges that presented, and talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's where you would end up using your jump cut as a fullback primarily, especially on your lead block plays. You're going to have guys stemming or stunts, like you said, chopping the fronts up, giving you a 3-man versus a 4-man, maybe starting in a 4-man, right? We're calling out Mike, and then they drop one of those outs or like an outside like lineman and drop him like to a linebacker's position, or vice versa, right? Which can chop it up, and then we'll end up having to redirect the mic. But a lot of times, here's how you beat stuff like that, in my opinion. You play fast. Okay, if you don't give the defense a lot of time to set up, it's hard for them to really run all their hidden magic tricks. So the quicker you can play on the ball, which was a great advantage for us, obviously, because that was the heart of, really what the philosophy of Rod Ball was. And then that, obviously trickled to Barwitz, which we had to be conditioned for. But changing things up like that is absolute terror up front, especially if you don't see a lot of those looks or you don't get a lot of reps in practice on stuff like that. You kind of here's another thing too, running the zone, okay? It's all about tracks. It's not necessarily about man, right? So running the zone against things like that and being true to your track and taking your 6-inch step and being disciplined in where you're supposed to go helps with stuff like that. But it's critical just to be ready. And for a player, in my opinion, I always would be visualizing the plays before they happen. Play would be called, right? Play would be signal end, and then you go up and you make you're making your reads, defense or whatever. And now I'm, at nanosecond speeds, I'm running through those plays in my mind before they actually happen to make sure that I can make the adjustments when they're made. Don't just run to one area. That's where you'll see a lot of younger players, in my opinion, just kind of be behind. And where you'll see a lot of the older players, especially in the league, guys who have maybe lost a step or two, really understand the game because they've just watched so much film. They know exactly what's really going on. They've seen the looks, they've dialed in the film. But as far as your overall question, Jed, yeah, it throws a monkey wrench into things, and you got to be prepared.
And Wes, I'll toss back to you. I know we got to go to break for Big Daddy to get him in here, but you're talking about playing fast, Owen. Well, the one thing that will help put you in position to play fast is gashing them on early downs.
Yeah.
So if you can get some 8, 10, 12-yard plays, that puts you in position to really tempo them. And bear in mind, this is a Texas Tech defense that has allowed the second most 10-yard gains from scrimmage in the Big 12. So if you get that humming against this defense, you can play with tempo and you can do exactly what you just said.
Oh, baby. Let's see it down there in the tortilla capital of the United States of America. One guy who will be there, other than Jed, of course, is our buddy Sean Big Daddy Mariner. We got to get Owen's smoked turkey recipe. We'll talk some Thanksgiving. We'll talk some turkey with our buddy Big Daddy on the other side. You are in the gun.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
Back in the gun here as we roll along, heading towards the final weekend of the Big 12 regular season. But of course, before we get to Saturday, it's the biggest day of the year, Thursday, Thanksgiving. And joining us now to talk all things turkey and Mountaineer football, it's our handsome, tubby man of gold, Sean Big Daddy Mariner. Sean, how we doing? You anticipating a big week ahead?
Howdy, gang. When you talk football on here, you make sure you have Jed and Owen speak because no one knows ball like Jed and Owen. When we're going to talk food and massive engagement with food, potentially buffet situations, you bring in the professional. And I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And I'm here to do what I can to share my light with the masses.
Well, let's begin then, because little bit of a curveball, if you will, or a little bit of a change of plans. When we teased this, the weekly beer truck recipe earlier in the week, we had a request from one of my Peach Lot buddies, Clay, who wanted to hear Owen's advice on smoking ribs. Clay, I promise you we're going to get to that, all right? We'll do that for our next one. But we figured the timeliness of this, Thanksgiving on the docket, we got to talk to Big O about smoking a turkey. So Big O, I know you've been doing the research. I know you've been thinking about this. All right, talk to me. I'm in my, I think, fourth year here. I'll be smoking a turkey, so I'm interested to see what you got to say here, partner. What do we need to know about smoking that bird?
Okay, so a little bit of research, not much. It's kind of a classic brine situation, but two ways to do a bird. Okay. I'll tell you an easy way, and a lot of people think the brining is like some sort of mastery, wizardry of smoking turkey, but really, a brine is simply just you're soaking the bird in a concoction you made for roughly 2 days to soak in all the good juices before cooking it, whether it's in the oven, the smoker, the deep fryer. honestly, I don't know if I would deep fry a brine bird
Yeah.
because of the water content. Probably wouldn't work too good with the oil.
Let me
But
just say,
we'll go ahead. We'll
Owen
go
has
ahead.
shared the brine recipe with us, and I am staring at the ingredients and I am just drooling. Like legitimately already.
They're not bad. It's not too crazy. It's kind of a
Yes,
grandmother's
baby.
recipe, I guess you could say. But
Keep it simple.
I'll give a standard smoked turkey that I would just smoke like maybe on the weekend or so. Right? Get your turkey, thaw it out. Hopefully, it's not you don't have to do all that whole nightmare. I'm personally um get my turkey. All right, pads of butter. Get you some Kerrygold butter. All right, chop them in little slices. Shove them underneath the skin. Okay, SPG. All right, salt, pepper, garlic, the Holy Trinity. Okay, toss it on the smoker. Okay, done. That's the simple version. Okay, it'll turn out great. 275 on the smoker. Okay, you're rolling for about 2-3 hours. Around the 2 hour mark, pop the lid. Butter. Okay, melt some more butter. Okay, it's gonna have some good color. And that's what you're really looking for. That's what I'm ever looking for when I'm smoking. I just want to see some really good color on the meat, some good browning, some good golds, some good kind of like um, hazelnutty colors. So a butter, you could do a garlic butter, whatever type of thing you want to make there. Okay, get wild with it. All right. Then I would finish and just kind of foil it. Keynote here, okay, before I tell you the brine recipe. When I am smoking a turkey, I'm smoking it on a big pan that catches all the drippings.
Got to keep the drippings.
Okay. And it's on a rack. So it's kind of sitting above. Okay. It's sitting above. So I want all those drippings because that's what I'll use for my gravies and my sauces and everything else I'll make. But the brine recipe, okay, 2 gallons of water. 1/2 canning salt or kosher. I use kosher. Okay. 1/3 cup brown sugar. 1/4 cup Worcestershire or who's your sister sauce. Okay. 3 tablespoons minced garlic. 1 tablespoon ground black pepper. Right. Soak for 2 days prior to smoking. Okay. And then, like I said, same thing. You're going to put something underneath to catch all the drippings. Okay. And then something like a wire rack so it still has the airflow underneath of it. 2 hours. Okay. One note, once you get it out of the brine, okay, I do like to do a light coat of SPG and I'll throw a little bit of paprika in there. Okay. I always try to get smoked paprika. Yeah, I like to do that or chili powder. It's really however you want to go. I do that for color because paprika, you're not down the smoked paprika, you will get some flavor from. But I'll do that mostly for color because it really does put a nice color on the bird. Gives you that like deep mahogany color. Um, and then like I said, I'll smoke for 2 hours, check the temps. You know what I mean? Butter, butter, butter. Once it's got a really nice, good looking shell on it, lather it down with butter. I'll foil it, right? I just put a foil cap over the whole thing just to finish. Okay. I'm a guy who likes to finish in the breast. Okay. In the breast, 162. Okay. 162. Okay. Which, yes, I get it. It is not done yet, but I put it right in the cooler. Okay. I've been smoking at 275, right? I pull it right out. I put it in the cooler. Okay. What that's going to do, and I make sure I butter bath it real quick before I put it in there. It's going to raise up. It's going to cook that meat fully. And then it's just going to slow down the whole process. So now all that's going to do is all that sweat that's going on, steam, it's going to drip back on the bird. It's, the muscle's going to start, contracting again. And it's going to start reabsorbing those juices. I like to really rest a bird as long as I can before we eat. That'll make the juiciest bird you can
At least an
literally, to
hour.
get.
At least an hour.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
at
what's the rule?
least,
Isn't it like
least.
with meat, you let it rest for as long as you cooked it, right? Is that the same with turkey, or is that too long since obviously you're going low?
Here's what I'm gonna say: if you didn't overcook your turkey, okay, which is very possible, it's gonna happen. But if you shove those butter pats under it, started the cook and everything, it's gonna have that. And go ham with the butter, okay? Don't. It's never too much. It's never too much
The
stuff.
amount
I
of
mean,
videos that
almost
have
make
been on
like a
my
whole.
Instagram feed is just people filling a bird
Hey,
with butter.
I'm telling you, dude.
Like,
I'm telling you, it needs it. It needs it. It truly does. That's why I like the Kerrygold. I know it's a little bit pricey, whatever, dude. It's Thanksgiving.
Hey,
Spend
our
the
Irish
extra
people,
dollar.
my
you get
Irish
what you
people
pay
know
for.
butter. We know butter, okay?
I'm just telling
They know a
you.
couple of things. Butter and pints are the two at the top of the list.
I don't know why you went
Yep.
Jamaican there, Wes, but I respect it.
And I will forget. I did forget to say I do stuff the birds. I
Bob
will
Marley,
stuff them. Yeah, I will stuff them with the gizzards and the stuffing and all that.
Do you
good
do any
jazz.
aromatics in there, Owen? Are you an orange and a lemon or a thyme in the cavity of the bird?
Oh yeah, you can go ham with whatever you put in there, man. I've done. I was gonna say another two with this brine. Okay, so if you do want to jazz it up, you could throw in a couple lemons. You could throw in a couple oranges.
Yeah,
you know,
cup of bourbon in that brine if you really want to get wild.
Bourbon in there, dog. You definitely throw some bourbon. It's kind of like a really base brine, but I'm telling you, it'll be on the money. You won't mess it up. I promise you. It'll be one of the best tasting birds, and you did it yourself.
Tell me,
That's my
tell me how Owen worked in a restaurant without telling me Owen worked in a restaurant or owned a restaurant.
Owns.
When he's saying color, it's not like you would like a brown bird. I want those hazelnuts.
Hazelnut
notes. Like you said that, I was like, oh,
yeah,
wow.
Well, use the term mahogany.
Yeah,
the mahogany.
Is he smoking
legit.
a bird, or is he making me a latte as my
Yeah.
local barista here?
Right.
No, but legit, that's what you're really looking for in the
Yes.
smoker. I mean, I learned that very, very early on. It's so hard to temp everything, right? You're trying to temp stuff. You're gonna see the color you want, right? Once it's aesthetically pleasing to you and what you're going for, because everybody's different. You know what I mean? Some people don't like a lot of color on their bird.
They don't want
just
the bark.
they like the real golden look where it's just, you know, it's not really much anything, honestly, but they don't want it to look you know, maybe darker or like I was saying, that mahogany color, or that like hazelnut color that you're really kind of looking for there. And then that's kind of how I do all my mate on the smoker, man. I'm looking for color. Once I get my color, I'm wrapping it.
Yep.
You will smoke a turkey, especially, and we're about to go to Crazyville. Spatchcock a turkey.
Oh, here we
okay.
go.
Oh,
Here we go.
jeez.
Listen, spatchcock a turkey. It'll be the quickest turkey you ever cooked.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking 2-3 hour cook time. Dunsky.
Yep.
Dunsky. And I mean, how many Thanksgivings, Jed, Wes, you know, Big Daddy, myself, have we sat there and watched Grandma in the oven cooking a turkey for like 12 hours?
It just needs another hour. It's just another hour.
You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. It's almost done.
Grandma, cut that bird in half. Let's go.
The little thermometer hasn't popped out of it yet. You know what I mean?
No.
You know, like you can buy them
8
with
p.m.
little...
Grandma, I want to eat.
Yeah. I love this
You
too
know,
because, well, dude, when I go to Texas, I'm getting brisket, I'm getting sausage, and I'm getting turkey at a barbecue place every time. Like a smoked turkey is upper echelon.
Hey, Texans can do some smoked turkey, dog.
Mm-hmm.
They can do some smoked turkey for the best.
Be at Kegel's Friday night, Big Daddy.
Well, I got a 5 a.m. crew call to get over to the stadium for that 11 a.m. kicks. Your fat buddy's landing, dropping stuff in the room, and hitting a restaurant quick.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I was thinking we're probably going to leave around 5:30 or 6.
Yeah,
I am jealous.
We're on
of
the
you
air
guys
at 7:30, but
because I can't
Go ahead.
I can't not when in Texas, man. You got to get some barbecue. I mean, you got to get some.
Oh, and
barbecue.
Gotta get some
Oh, and let me tell you, there's a joint here in Lubbock. Lubbock is riddled with food options. It's crazy how much good food they have there. Place called Caprock is where we went 2 years ago. It's where I'm pushing for again. It's like if Varsity and Fishbowl had a green chili baby, and like I'm there.
I love it. I love it. A green
Oh,
chili
so you're
baby with
saying if you
lots of
cut the
mac and
turkey
cheese.
in half? Is that what you were
Spatchcock
saying?
that bad boy layer.
Okay, so when you spatchcock a turkey, you're basically like you're laying him down. So he'll be like,
You're laying it
a
flat.
turkey will set up like this.
Cut the
He's
spine
like
out.
this now.
Wow. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Well, it just, I mean, now you can't do your stuffing that way. I guess you could put it underneath of it or something.
It's
if you
not the
wanted
same.
to,
If you're
but,
an OG stuffing, it's not the
that's
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to do it.
The one
Yeah,
downside
yeah,
of
it's,
spatchcock.
Here's the deal, though. You can, okay, that's the whole point of the drip tray. Okay.
Yep.
You get the drip tray and you can smoke the stuffing and all that stuff inside your smoker as well. It just won't be inside the turkey.
Now,
I'll be doing it in the
you
oven.
make your gravy with the drippings. Are you just going drippings, or are you making a roux then adding?
Yeah,
drippings?
you're definitely making a roux.
Okay.
Which, not to freak anyone out, a roux is like butter and flour.
Equal parts
It's
butter,
not
flour.
really-
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
it's
scared
not.
to death of them, and then I
Don't-
was like, "Oh, this is easy."
Well, I mean, and there's you see so many recipes, and you really look down. I always get like the roots from like Louisiana,
Mhm.
and I always like really like the culinary stuff from down there. So I'm always like trying
French
to
background, baby.
yeah. So it's like, get a nice roux together. Always use the stuff that you're cooking with. It's fine out of a can. It is okay. It's not a bad deal. You can get instant gravy or whatever stuff too. I'm not going to tell you that I've never used a pre-made barbecue sauce or anything like that. I've used those. Generally what I'll do, especially if I'm not, if it's not a huge job or I'm just trying to do something quick, like a quick barbecue sauce for me would be something like this, right? I would use 1 cup Sweet Baby Ray's, okay?
The Godfather.
Right? Just off the deal, which is a good barbecue sauce. It's not bad. I'm not saying nothing about that, right? But you do 1 cup barbecue sauce, 1 cup beef stock, and or beef drippings from the brisket, and then a half a cup of apple cider vinegar to taste, and then some of your seasoning, and shake that up. Now you got a legit a good barbecue sauce. It's not super thick like Sweet Baby Ray's. It's thinned out. Now you can go into a whole ham about how to make your own barbecue sauce, and that it's really not too hard. You just need some ingredients, but that's for another time. We'll do that with the ribs.
That's right. We'll do that with the ribs.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I also, just to throw this in there for everybody, you want to change your life, all right? Get you a cast iron pan, make your green bean casserole in the cast iron pan, put that thing on the smoker.
Yeah.
It'll change your life. But gentlemen, as we wrap up this turkey talk, and I mean, I'm just salivating listening to Big O talk about all those delicious things. Real quick first, thanks to our friends at Johnson Equipment as well for being a presenting sponsor of ITG. You can get 0% financing for 72 months, plus a free loader on select Coyote models in stock. Visit Johnson Equipment on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan. Before we go, gentlemen, a little fun, paint a picture of yourself for everybody. One protein, okay, one meat. I need you to construct your Thanksgiving plate, but with some parameters. One meat, 3 sides, 1 dessert, and 1 beverage. All right? And I'll give you guys a second to think about it. I'm going to go turkey as my meat. Listen, if you say ham, I know some people like to do prime rib. I know some people like to do steaks. Fine. I'm not hating on that. I'll put those things on my plate too. But it's like the one day a year that I'm really looking forward to turkey, especially since I started smoking the bird a couple years ago. It's a complete game changer. So I'm going turkey. 3 sides, green bean casserole, stuffing, and mashed potatoes. Of course, with the gravy. I don't think you could say mashed potatoes and gravy. I don't think that's cheating. Those things go hand in hand. I know that's kind of predictable and kind of bland, but again, I spend all year waiting for those Thanksgiving palettes. I want some mac and cheese on there. I want some of these other things on there, but I eat those more often than I eat kind of the core 3 for me: green bean casserole, stuffing, and mashed potatoes and gravy. For my dessert, I'm going pecan pie. I mean, I love some pumpkin, but something about Thanksgiving to me has always screamed pecan. And then for my one beverage, this might surprise you, I'm a good red wine drinker on Thanksgiving. I like a nice Cabernet. Okay, I can sip on it all day.
The
It doesn't
tamest
have
guy.
it doesn't have the same kind of at times like overpowering beer palate. If I'm trying to drink a bunch of beers, I could just sip on a nice red cab. So that's what I'll go for as my beverage. Jed, you've been awfully quiet over there. Come on, let's go. One meat, three sides,
I'm
one
soaking
dessert,
this
one
all
beverage.
in.
Yeah. Wes, can
I'm
I ask
soaking this
what
all in.
does a roll count as a side?
So you know what? I'm glad you said that because we had this same conversation on Fox Sports Pittsburgh today.
I don't think it does, but I'll adhere by the
I said no as well too because I think that's just a given. You know what I mean? That's
It's
just
accessory.
Yeah.
It's like butter. Does butter count as an side? No, it's just a given. Salt and pepper, it's just
like
a given.
chips in a Mexican restaurant. It doesn't
Exactly
count.
right. Exactly right. It's just a given. The dinner roll is just a given.
It's a given. Yeah. So no, I'm soaking it in. Thanks, Owen. Now I'm starving to death. But we make the oven old school in the I don't have a smoker yet. I've talked about it for years, but I still don't. We do it in the oven overnight. So this year we'll be taping Phil Steele. So I'll be checking on the turkey. Skylar and I are taping Phil Steele early Thursday morning on Thanksgiving morning. But so I'm going to go with the turkey. Yeah, it almost sounded. I'm a ham guy too, Wes. I mean, all those things you mentioned, but it's Thanksgiving. I mean, it would almost seem sacrilegious to not have the turkey, right? But and then I'm going to have to go with mashed potatoes and gravy, just like you said. Or it'd be mashed taters if I'm talking Billy Bob Thornton and Sling Blade, right?
Right.
Stuffing, dressing, whichever version, I'm good with both. Absolutely, that's a must, and I probably have gravy on that too. Okay. And then I'm gonna go. We make green beans in the crock pot also overnight. I have seasoning. I have some what'd you call it, Wes? Or Owen, what's your sister's name?
What's your sister's
The sauce? What's your sister's sauce? Yeah. And we put bacon in there as well.
Yeah.
Cook it up. So I'd go with that. And then for dessert, look, I've never met a pie that I didn't like, but on Thanksgiving I'd probably go pumpkin. Maybe with whipped cream, maybe not. I don't have to. But and then with the drink, I'm boring. I really don't care. You know,
you a sherbet guy on Thanksgiving?
Ooh,
fruit punch
Ooh.
with the sherbet in it.
See, that's a Christmas.
To be honest with you, I've probably been drinking water. I'm boring. You know, you know me. You know, I'm probably drinking water. You know, I'm just boring.
The punch situation.
It's pretty simple. I agree with everything you said almost, Wes. What's that, Big Daddy?
The punch is a big Christmas thing in the Ohio Valley. Like that was always
I agree with that.
With the sherbet in it
around Christmas time. Yeah, a little sherbet in the red punch. It's
like sherbet. God, I love sherbet.
Yeah. Sean, it was a Doddridge County staple at our family Christmases that it like bled into Thanksgiving. People
just
like
early.
That makes sense.
Kind of like Mariah Carey on November 1st.
Yep.
Wes, it's weird. Didn't we say the same exact things except for the drink? Well, the pie.
Yep. The pie. Yep.
But three sides were the same. Yeah. So anyway, I don't think you can go wrong. But who wants to go next? I want you have me starving to death now, and I haven't eaten dinner yet. But thanks, by the way. But go ahead. Whoever wants to take the floor.
Yeah, we'll save the best for last. We'll save Big Daddy for last for
please.
sure because I'm sure he's got an enormous outlook on Thanksgiving dinner. But I'm a thigh guy, all right? So I'm gonna do my turkey. All right. I'm gonna do my turkey for sure. I'm gonna do green bean casserole, definitely extra onions, the French onions, little crunchies. I gotta have a lot in there, dude. Gotta have a lot. I love it. I love those. We do a it's a sweet potato carrot mash with brown sugar.
Ooh, a mash.
Yeah, it's like it's a mash that we do. That's another one of my sides. And then I'm a sucker for some canned cranberry, dog.
Ooh.
Like, give me the whole can, dog.
Okay. It's got to have the ridges. It's got to have the ridges coming out.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm like shaking it out of the can, dude.
Now, how are you doing, Owen? Are you doing like slices on top of things, or are you just catching it?
Well, no. Well, my grandma always did the slice.
He's eating it right out of the can with a
just scooping.
Yeah,
she did the can, but there'd always be like none left, and she'd always get an extra can. I'd have to shake it out and eat it, dude. I loved it. And it's like
blame you.
Yeah, it's probably the worst thing for you, but I don't know what it is, but I love it, man. And I guess for dessert, I'd have to say pumpkin pie,
Yeah.
heavy on the whip, heavy on
Mhm.
the whip. Okay, a little cinnamon on top, right, just to
Ooh.
bring out the notes. And then I'm going to say for my drink, I will do um some sparkling cider.
Ooh, you dog.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a good
You
one.
dog.
That's a
Now,
real
Owen, are
good
you
one.
doing a scoop of Cool Whip or are we doing a spray can of Ready Whip building the tower?
We're probably a homemade whip. We're probably, yeah, we're a
Okay.
homemade.
Come on,
My
get you some heavy
apologies.
whipping
Thick,
cream. All right, come on,
thick, like a thick,
some
you know
heavy
what I
whipping
mean?
cream.
Yeah. You've been whipping
Yeah.
it the entire time the turkey's been on the smoker. Yeah.
Almost
Whip it
butter,
good.
dog.
Yeah.
Almost butter.
All right, Big Daddy, the people are anxious. Build us your plate.
Trust the fat guy.
Oh.
Okay, first of all, curveball. I'm surprised nobody tried to throw one of these in. I'm not a deviled eggs guy, but
Ooh.
an appetizer, Shelby makes a pumpkin apple cider dip with
Ooh.
cheese. Get out of here. Little
Ooh.
crostini. Oh, lights out.
Yeah, now you're talking.
Big turkey. But we're talking thick boy, juicy slices on that plate. Okay, now the three sides, I'm going to need some help here because I've had some wonderful homemade sage sausage and apple stuffing and all that. I
Ooh.
am white trash from the jump, a box of traditional sage stovetop, and I'm yours forever. So that better be okay. That's one. Homemade buttered noodles in like a chicken stock that my mom made. It was a family recipe. Lights out.
Ooh.
My third is where I struggle because, I mean, this is a body built by mashed potatoes and gravy on Thanksgiving, obviously. But we know what a slut I am for mac and cheese. Now, the Mariners were never mac and cheese on Thanksgiving people, but if all options are open, I'm struggling between some mashed potatoes and some mac and cheese.
Yeah.
I think I got to lean potatoes. We'll go a little more traditional in that route.
Sure.
But just know that the mac and cheese is around the corner on my to-go plate. Okay. Rolls, big time.
Big time.
My Pap's twin brother had a homemade roll recipe that has been like at gunpoint. You learn this and you speak its words out. You're done. You're out of the family. So those are A plus, and those are happening. Dessert. Again, I'm like you, Jed. Never met a pie this body didn't want to absorb. Shelby found a recipe for a candied bacon sweet potato pie a few years ago.
Oh, baby.
Lights out. Lights out. Well, sparkling cider got me. That one got me. Oh, I'm all on board with that. But I'm a water guy too, Jed. Like I'm just drinking water with it. But if we can pick any drink, I'm also a strawberry lemonade slut. So I'm in on that. That's line it
Big
up.
candied bacon guy, Big Daddy.
Dude.
I mean, that's how I make bacon. I
Really?
candy
You just
it when I
candied
make
every
it.
time? Jed, I'm telling you, candied bacon, sweet potato. Oh,
You know, it's funny you said that about the stuffing because literally after we tape tonight, it's Monday night. I've got a couple rolls that I got at the Gucci Kroger in Morgantown yesterday or Sunday that I'm making my days up here. I got to get the sourdough and I got to go upstairs and tear it into pieces and let it set out and dry over the next 2 days to help the stuffing. And so that process starts as soon as we finish taping here. But yeah,
I'm telling you, it's wonderful. It's amazing. In the bird, nice and a box of stovetop.
Forget about it.
Yeah, about it.
Sometimes you got to ride the horse that got you there.
I mean,
You know?
dance with who brung you, boys. Dance with who brung you.
Can't forget where you came from. I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. Well, this was delightful. Sean, next time we catch up with you, we'll have plenty to talk about. The Thanksgiving feast, the win in Lubbock, the meal in Lubbock.
Yeah.
So we greatly look forward to that. Thank you for your time as always.
Let's post pics. Let's post our Thanksgiving.
Fair. That's fair.
Pics. That's a good one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Attach them to the ITG account.
Listen, I'm normally an anti-phone eats first guy. All right, everyone's got some things in their generation that they push back against. Mine is the phone eats first. Take a picture of everything. But I'll make an exception on Thursday. I'll make an exception.
Or just 1 year, 2 or 3 bites. I mean, this is how we're living. Well, bang, there it is.
That's a good point. Or you know what? I could just take a picture of my second plate, and nobody will know the difference anyway. They ain't gonna know. They ain't gonna know. Sean, thanks for the time as always, buddy. Happy holidays to you and yours. First Thanksgiving as a father of 2. Oh, baby.
2. Yeah, we're trying
baby.
I don't know. It might have to wait till Christmas for little man to get some mashed potatoes or anything, but it's on the horizon.
Sure.
Declan's he's gonna
lose it.
He eats more than I do, so we're gonna get him on here at some point so he can tell you.
He's gonna give us his review next week. Yeah, that's right. That'll be. Make sure we get a picture of Declan's plate too here. Obviously.
It's gonna be a smile and carbs. Get ready for it.
All we got to do to wrap this thing on the other side is just give our weekly picks before we get out of here. We'll do that when we return. You are in the gun.
There are better-known tractors in the world than Coyote. Ones with bigger names, longer histories, more popular hats, cute toy lines. But there's not a single tractor ever been built that's better equipped to do the dirty work. So we'll just focus on what really matters. Coyote, we dig dirt.
Now at Johnston Equipment, get 0% financing for 72 months, plus a free loader on select Coyote models in stock. Visit us on Route 33 between Weston and Buchanan.
Back in the gun here as we roll along. We're not only hungry for Thanksgiving dinner, we're hungry for a victory in Lubbock. A lot to feast upon this weekend, including, of course, our weekly, pick'em here on ITG. But before we give our picks for this Week 14, the final week of the Big 12 regular season, Jed, a recap of how us and our listeners did last week.
Okay, two things to hit right here. Let's start. I did passing offense. I was wrong. Texas Tech threw for the most. Scary enough, I know, as we approach that game. Wes, you picked Iowa State against Utah. Like me, you didn't score. Neither one of us placed in the top five. Skylar picked West Virginia versus UCF. Offensively, West Virginia scored 31, but he didn't place in the top five. 0 for Skylar. The only one, once again,
it's carrying this
outfit.
The
2005 Louisville game continues as he mounts the comeback. Owen picked Kansas State to rush for the most yards versus Cincinnati. They finished number 2, so he gets 4 points. Once again, Kansas was number 1. So, but Kansas State was number 2. They ran for 281, so he gets 4 points. So, drum roll, please, as we approach the final week of competition. Our score stands: Skylar 15, holding up the bottom. Wes in the lead at 33 points.
I've been stuck there for weeks.
On his heels, tied at 31 points. 33 Wes, 33 me, and Owen, 15 Skylar. So pick wisely, choose wisely this week, gentlemen. Oh, boy. Wes, I'll tell you what. If you end up winning by 2 points, that would mean you won because Iowa State overturned that call and drove 95 yards to score. That's where you got your 2 points. I said it when it happened, and now that's the 2 points that have you in the lead. Meanwhile, let's hit our viewer/listener picks from last week. 3 people got the point scored, the offense correct. John from Maryland, thanks for listening. Thanks for picking and taking part. Denny from Ona. Kevin from North Carolina, all 3 picked the offense. Points allowed. Baylor held Houston to 10. That was the fewest. 1 person got that correct. Charles from North Carolina. Rushing yards. Nobody got it correct, though, when Kansas ran for 331. Nobody got that one right. Passing yards. Texas Tech. 1 person got that correct. John from Maryland again. John from Maryland, only contestant to get 2 multiple picks. He got 2 right. So good on John from Maryland. And now you want to put Skylar's meaningless pick out there. We make our 3 meaningful picks.
Skylar, I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, he's pretty harsh there, but he's not wrong. Skylar's taking Colorado for his offense of the week to score the most points in the Big 12. 8-3 Colorado against 3-8 Oklahoma State. Colorado 17-point favorites there in Boulder. So Skylar will take Colorado as his offense of the week. Jed, who you taking for signal caller of the week?
You want me to roll now? I'll roll now.
Go for it.
Okay. Mine would seem pretty obvious. You have Shadur Sanders hosting the Oklahoma State defense. I have one concern. I don't want them to jump up big and stop throwing, but I do think after getting held to 266 in a loss on the road at Kansas, Deion's going to want his boy to pile up some big numbers to make up for that this week. So I'm going to go ahead and roll with Colorado to throw for the most yards. And I've thought it through. I've looked at it high and low. I went back and forth. I almost took West Virginia or Texas Tech. because I expect some passing yards to be, stacked up in that one too in Lubbock by both teams. TCU's on the road at Cincy. I almost feel like I have to hit the 5 to have a chance.
Yeah.
I really do. Because you have that 2-point lead, you got that cushion on me and Owen. So I'm going to go Colorado. I'm going to dance with who brung me.
Big O, beer truck of the week. Who's going to run for the most yards in the conference?
Well, after much thought and consideration, okay, I'm doing something crazy here. Okay, doing something crazy.
Do it.
I am going to pick Arizona State University.
Ooh.
In a rivalry game versus Arizona.
I like it.
Arizona,
but I'm feeling
13th.
this one.
Arizona 13th in the Big 12 against the run, Owen. So yeah, they've struggled. They've struggled.
There we go.
But
we'll see.
That game has a weird vibe. I want to get Phil's take on that. Arizona State, obviously, a heavy favorite, but it is a true rivalry game. All bets are off, and they're going to Tucson. That almost feels weird. I don't know if that's a safe game for Arizona State. Maybe it is, but you don't know who's going to show up for Arizona. But yeah, they've struggled against the run, Owen. So yeah, you and I don't have much margin for error here. We almost have to hit it.
Well, neither do I.
Here, yeah.
I mean, I've been goose egg for what 2 or 3 straight weeks now. So I feel like the Mountaineers the Mountaineers out in Tucson a couple weeks ago jumped out to this big lead, and now I'm just kind of trying to hold on at the end here. They've hurt me a couple times lately. But you know what? It's like when you believe in something, you don't walk away from the table of, you wait till it hits.
I see where this is going. Go.
Taking the Cougs of BYU in the Coug on Coug Bowl there in Utah as the Houston Cougs roll into wait, I'm drawing a blank. Where's BYU play? Provo. Yeah,
Edwards Stadium.
As I kept thinking Salt Lake City, but I know that's Utah. That's not BYU. It's Provo, of course. As the Cougs, the Houston Cougs, roll into Provo to take on the BYU Cougs. Give me BYU as my defense of the week. I've got a couple other teams that are staring at me, giving me the sexy eyes, but I'm going to take BYU in a game that suddenly really matters for them and for Houston. Hopefully, they're already on the bus and looking towards the off season.
I'll be honest, Wes. When I was hoping he wouldn't go that way, and all I can say is, Zion Chris, let's go, baby. Let's go, baby. Zion Chris, let's see what you got. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, when you're sitting on the throne, everyone wants to come for the crown. All right.
So what this means is, we don't need just one. We need at least 2 to tie him. We need 2 defenses to hold somebody to fewer points than what Houston's going to score.
If I get a first or second place, there's nothing. Even if I get second place, you guys couldn't make up a margin. If I came in third and one of you guys came in first, then we would tie.
We tie.
Yeah.
So much like
we gotta hit a home run this week.
Much like WVU. Much like WVU, there's a lot of tiebreaker scenarios that can play out this week. Real quick.
You picked what was it? You picked a Utah game.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. I don't remember who I picked last week.
I was just
you're right. That's not a lot of points. That's not a lot of points. And I mean, who had WVU? Did Skylar have WVU last week? Right. And I mean, WVU scored 31, and that still didn't register any points. So yeah, there's been some weird results. So how about this though? Because we have to have before we get out of here, we have to have a tiebreaker to make this fair in case we do end up with a tie.
Set a tiebreaker next week.
Well, no, because we'll have a you get what I'm saying? I mean, I guess we could pick something in the Big 12 championship game or something like that. But I think for our regular
championship weekend,
I think our regular season Big 12 tiebreaker should be the last person who had a first place finish. That's the first tiebreaker. Make sense? That's the tiebreaker.
That makes sense.
So So if we finish, I guess the three of us couldn't. Although we could have a 3-way tie for first. If that happens, whoever had the last first place finish.
So in other words,
it's the regular season crown.
So in other words, you're saying if you get a 3 and Owen and I both get 5s, you're screwed because
I guess that then we'd have to come up with a. That's true. Then we'd have to come up with another tiebreaker. That's a good point. If that's the tiebreaker, no. But then again, whoever had the most recent 5 after that, we'll just go down the line of most recent first place finish.
Owen, here's what alarms me. Here's what Houston has scored this year. 7, 12, 33, 0, 0, 30, 14, 17, 24, 3, and 10. And they're on the road in Provo against a pissed off BYU team. I don't like our odds.
Hey, Jed, I know you're a big Star Wars guy. So like Han Solo said, never tell me the odds. All right.
Never tell me the odds.
And that's the same energy we're going into Lubbock with. Just win and never tell me the odds.
When did he say it, Wes?
I know he was in the Millennium Falcon.
Yes, he was.
I know they were running away from the Empire.
Yes, he was.
I'm just
Your
struggling.
odds of surviving an asteroid field are.
That's right.
So the asteroid field above Hoth, Empire Strikes Back.
3PO.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Big thanks to Big Daddy for joining us. Big thanks to Skylar for putting this together. We will have Phil Steele Friday as the fixins continue to roll out here in Thanksgiving week. We talked about our pictures and everything. If any of you do the Big O smoked turkey method, make sure you send us some pictures and some reviews as well too. For the Pitmaster beer truck, Big O extraordinaire, and the signal caller Jed Drenning, I'm Wes Schuler. The one thing we ask of you is to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Still feel Steele to come this week. Everybody be safe if you're traveling for Thanksgiving. If you're imbibing on Wednesday night traditions, don't drink and drive. Don't be a dink, all right? Make sure you're drinking responsibly, and everybody enjoy the time with family and friends. And we'll meet back here, on Friday, and then next week, of course, as well, to recap a big week for all of us and for the Mountaineers. But that will do it for this edition of In the Gun. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. You have been In the Gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.